Hey, everybody, it's Mark Masters. Another Monday. It's Always Bookin Comedy. Mel is backstage and probably trying to figure out how to get connected. So I will just kill a little time here. Uh, Looks like Mark in the Carolinas is here. Hi, Mark. Good to see you. Hope you got some good questions today. Um, let's see. Can I add? No. Mel, you're, I don't know if you can hear me, but you are. It's not exactly working. Maybe try a phone instead of a computer or vice versa, and we'll see what happens. So let's see. Let's not have too much dead air time here. What can I tell you about? Today I sent some booking emails, trying to figure out. I got a gig like 10 hours north of Denver coming up in Montana, and there's a club in Bozeman, Montana that I've been excited to work at for a long time. And so I emailed them. The gig in northern Montana is on a Saturday, and I asked them if they might have any stage time on that Friday, and they were very accommodating. So a win right there. There, I'm going to do two shows with a very funny comedian that a comedian who just did a run with me recommended that I book as a headliner. So I'm going to kill two birds with one stone, as the saying goes. I'm going to get some stage time in a new club, and I'm going to get to check out an act that I may be booking in the future. That gentleman's name is Bo Johnson. He's got Don't Tell video online, Los Angeles kid, I'm assuming, based on who recommended him to me. And we are, Mark, you got any questions? I'm trying to fill a little time. So that's a win. Here's a loss. I have like a 2-week road trip where I drive from Denver to Florida and back. I was going to do Wichita, Kansas. That's another loss. I don't think the showrunner got the show together, so that may not be happening. But then next I'm doing uh, Springdale, Arkansas, headlining a show on a Thursday night. Friday night, I was supposed to be in Chattanooga, Tennessee. This is where the losing comes in. Then I'm in Nashville. Then I'm all over the place. Alabama, Mississippi, back in Arkansas, driving all the way back to Denver. But on that first Friday, I was supposed to be in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and the show that I was going to be on, coming up on its 3-year anniversary, great show, has completely folded as of this week. They lost a venue. Apparently, it's the second or third venue they've lost recently, and they are just calling it quits. So, to the credit of that showrunner, he reached out very politely. I feel terrible about the situation, and he was just like, what can I do to make this right? And he got me booked at a nearby comedy club. It's unpaid. It's a guest spot, so it's a little bit of I guess a downgrade. I was going to feature on this show with some fancy New York comedian as the headliner. Now I'm getting a guest spot at the comedy club, but I found out today the headliner is Dale Jones, which I'm super psyched about. I think Dale Jones is so funny. He's out of the Atlanta area. I did work with him once before north of Los Angeles. It was like a festival competition, and he won the whole thing. I was so impressed with him that when he came through Denver, he did the Improv near Denver. I went and saw him and talked to him. So hopefully he'll remember me. Probably not, but maybe I'll get a chance to talk to him. And if nothing else, I'll get to see him. I think he's so funny, and learn from him. And I'll learn something from doing a guest spot at a new club. I think they have 2 shows a night. I have one show for sure I have the guest spot, and one where I don't. All right, I feel like I killed enough time here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to old school call Melissa and see what's happening. I'll put her on speaker so you can kind of hear. We'll see. Let's see what happens here. See if she answers. Is that voicemail?
I'm in the process of putting on with my phone.
Okay, sounds good. You're on speaker, by the way. Okay.
Oh, hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. We'll work on get on in. I'll keep talking for a couple more minutes. No problem.
All right,
Okay, bye. All right, she's switching over to the phone. I don't know, Mark. You got any questions in Carolina? What else can I tell everybody? I don't know. I recently did a show where I was the headliner. Ticket sales were weak. They wanted to cancel the show, and they asked if they could pay me less. That's like a interesting thing to try and navigate. And I don't know if I have the right answer for that. I said, let's do the show. It was a combination of things. I was traveling already. Um, for business purposes, I was trying to write off the travel. If the show gets canceled, I guess I could still count the ticket as a business expense because it's not my fault that the show got canceled. I booked it in the expectation that I had paid work coming, but I wanted to do the show. I like doing different rooms. I like getting stage time, and I felt like I could take a pay cut. So I agreed to do the show anyways and just said, we'll figure it out after the show. A little bit of me hoped that a bunch of people would walk in and the show would fill up and then maybe they'd pay me the full amount anyways. But it was a great show. It was really fun. I had a great time. I did forget I flew my little timer across the country, and then I forgot to bring it to the show, which was a little bit of a bummer. Uh, and had a good time. Had a fun riff about marinara, and now I guess, waiting to get paid technically, but we've negotiated a lower rate, and hopefully I get paid, and I hope that that producer remembers that in the future, and maybe I'll get, some more stage time, in the future because I was easy to work with. I'm not sure I recommend, letting people change their deals with you. Certainly when I produce shows, I have never, gone back and dropped what I was going to pay somebody. I also, to date, have not canceled a show, knock on wood, but, it may happen sometime in the future, and I don't know, I take a little bit of pride in paying comics even when I lose some money on a show, which certainly happens, uh, and sometimes if you calculate the amount that I make for the time that I put in, let's say that a show, I end up making, like, $75 in quote, unquote, "profit," but I spent 6 hours in creating art and posters and hanging things and going around, and then the actual night of the honestly, I don't think there's a show that can get ready in 6 hours or less. Let's call it 10 hours. I'm making 750 an hour. That's not really, that's barely making a profit. Um, I'm guessing that Mel is still struggling to get on, so we're gonna take a question from the audience, everybody. We may have to reschedule Mel until next week. Maybe we'll call this a solo episode. I don't know if she can hear me, but, maybe she'd consider that. Best way to find a venue looking to add a monthly comedy show. This is funny. I'll leave the question up on the screen while I answer it. But just a really terrible answer is have a good reputation for running shows with other venues. When you can go into a venue and show pictures of successful shows, talk about how you were able to build a show, that definitely helps. There's also an element of luck involved. Most places will either want to have a comedy show or won't right out the gate. And so, whatever your pitch is, that's not going to move the needle too much. They either want extra business and don't mind turning off TVs and stuff like that. It's also a volume game. I think I've told this story before, but once I was had a show scheduled in an out of town city. It got canceled about 10 days out. And so I just started cold calling venues in that city and eventually came back. Eventually found one. I called like six, or I cold emailed six venues. Two got back to me. One was pretty generic email, just like roll, share this with management. The other one seemed a little more solid. I got somebody on the actual phone. We ended up doing a very successful show, sold a lot of tickets, paid a lot of local comics, good money, and everybody was happy. They sold a ton of drinks. It was a distillery that we did the show at. So I would look for places that have liquor licenses and preferably do some kind of live music. And because then they're going to have a stage and maybe lighting, maybe sound equipment. And let me see if Mel wants to reschedule for next week. Should we reschedule for next week? And I can do this as a solo episode. I can practice in the meantime. Okay. So yeah, there's an interesting case study in Castle Rock, Colorado, where I now have a monthly show that's been going for a long time and is fairly successful. I tried to get a show there for like over a year. And I think the issue in that community was that the businesses were all killing it. So I would go in and talk to a manager and be like, "Hey, can we do a show on a Tuesday night?" And they're like, "Every table is full, every bar stool is full every Tuesday night. Why would I want your business?" Um, so I really struggled. Eventually, I found a coffee shop, no liquor license, definitely not. I mean, I don't want to say it's not ideal because the show is really fun now. It's a really we've turned it into something really good, but at the at on the face of it, it seems like a bad idea to run a show where they can't even sell booze. So, I don't know, also so that's another tip, maybe get creative with the kinds of businesses you're checking with. I mean, one thing I always look for that's like a cheat code is a side room. "Hey, look at that." All right, we
Yes.
got Mel. All right. "Hey, can you turn your phone sideways so we get a little more video?" Okay, all right. We were just talking about finding new venues. Why don't we pose that question to you, Mel? So Mel's up in the Pacific Northwest, in Olympia. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's
Olympia,
right.
Washington, home of the spawning salmon. Uh, Tell us when you're looking for a new venue, you're trying to add a monthly show at a new venue. How do you find a new venue, Mel?
Really around here, so I try and stay pretty local. It really is kind of word of mouth about people actually, know that we do comedy. And I get approached a lot about, oh, have you checked out this place or that place? But my criteria is I really like places that have food and alcohol,
Okay,
and that are kind of date night appropriate, I guess. You know,
got it. That's smart.
I Yeah, I really try and like focus on my goal has always been to just try and create a really nice event, a date night for people so they don't have to drive all the way north to Seattle, an hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes. So just kind of make it nice for our locals here.
Nice. Um, cool. Any particular success stories where maybe a venue like wasn't really interested in you, but eventually you got them to do a show?
Um, well, I mean, so the one that you came when you were here, Heritage
That was a
Distilling
cool
Company.
venue.
Yeah, so they were pretty new. I mean, from the time that I think they're probably like 2 years old, the building, it was just constructed.
Okay.
And so they had never had a comedy show or really much use of that room down there below before us. And
What's
so,
the venue name? I kind of talked over you.
oh, Heritage Distilling Company in
Heritage just
Tumwater.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they
So
have an
we just,
event room in like their basement, kind of.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought it was kind of fun because my very first comedy show I ever went to up here in the Pac Northwest was Tacoma Comedy Underground.
Okay.
And I just kind of like got that kind of vibe from it when I saw it. I was like, oh, it's downstairs. It's kind of like basement vibe, you know. But it's very nice. They have their bar down there, which made it easier for people to get drinks. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And you bring a lot of equipment to that show, which I think is another trick. Like, if they already had a stage and, all kinds of stuff for live performances, they might not really need you as much as they do. You do a great job marketing, bringing them business, and you pop up a comedy club for them.
Yeah. Yeah, we've gotten pretty good at doing that. That all started when you know Tana Manu is one of the people on our team, and so he is a very experienced, seasoned comic, but he's also a carpenter. So we just kind of got really lucky with the people that are on the team, the comics, and so he constructed that stage that we use. And so it fits into our garage, it fits into our Denali, so we just throw it in the car along with everything else that we have, and we set it up. And it's just kind of second nature, I guess. Now we know what we have to do, you know, when we get to a place. So we just kind of run in there and start setting everything up. And at the end of the night, everything's broken down and everybody helps load everything back into the vehicle.
Nice, nice. What are you doing for lighting these days? I remember lighting was a little bit of a challenge when I was through there about a year ago.
Yeah, it just depends on, you know, where we're at and where, you know, that particular place. But my husband, who's also on the team, he went out and he got some new lighting. So I don't know what it's called. He's my tech guy.
Okay.
But yeah, so he sets it up, and we haven't had much, we haven't had really any issues lately with that. It's been slow. We took a break during the summer. We didn't do much comedy because, as you know, here in Washington, it rains a lot. So I don't think it's very successful. Not much success for the shows during the summer. People want to be outside.
Yeah.
So we're vamping back up again. Got a couple shows planned in the future.
Nice. And then, so would you say winter is your busiest time?
Yeah, up
Or your
here
best
for sure.
time?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same. I feel like that's a universal thing. That the biggest reason, in my opinion, being that in the summer it gets dark so much later. So if you're doing an 8 o'clock show in the dead of summer, it might still be light outside. People don't really want to go in a basement where it's dark. They'd rather be on their patio or whatever out there enjoying, you know, some fish or river activity or something like that. Yeah. So something I've been thinking a lot about recently is ticketing. What do you use for your tickets? Is it Eventbrite or something else?
I use Eventbrite. I haven't had any issues with it. I know actually just this past month when I've started planning again, they've changed some of their rates. And so they are charging more than what they did. And I would use the email campaign. And so that was really nice. That goes out to everybody who's ever purchased a ticket before, but now they're charging more for that. But as far as organization goes and everything that's there and me knowing what's available in Eventbrite, I find it very user-friendly, makes my life easier. So I think I'm going to stick with it.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, Eventbrite definitely raising their fees. It's hard to find a good alternative. And once you learn a tool, you're kind of stuck with it because it's easy. It's what you know, even if it's more expensive. There must be some business term for that. Stickiness, probably. It's a sticky service. It's hard to leave.
Yeah, they make it easy. And then between that and Canva, those are the two things that I use.
Talk about Canva a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, Canva is just, for me, I've got all my photos of all the comics that have ever done work with us. It's already uploaded. You know, so if they're going to come back, it just makes it easier for me to put together the flyers. Every flyer I've ever done is saved in there. And so again, it's just one of those things that I started to get familiar with. When we first started doing comedy out here, my husband was doing everything. And the reason I started doing the booking and getting more involved was because it really is like, it's his passion. It's his passion. He likes to do it, but we also both work. And so I just started diving in, trying to, you know, contribute to it. And then the next thing you know, I was just kind of doing a little bit more and a little bit more. And it evolved. So I enjoy it. I have a great time.
Awesome. All right. Well, what other tricks do you have for, like, I noticed when I went through your area and did your show, you had the audience, it was packed. So how do you draw that big audience? What other, you mentioned the email. Do you want to talk a little bit about the emails you send and then maybe some other things you do?
Yes, I mean, it's just the email campaigns are big. The other thing is just I'm pretty plugged into my community. So I work full time, but I also teach dance fitness in the area. So community centers, I teach dance fitness at gyms. I have a very strong core group of girlfriends out here. And so, I mean, they'll share the flyers. we have like a following, you know. Ruben and I were out a couple weeks ago at a wine event and at a friend's wine bar, and somebody had stopped us and said, "Hey, you know, like, aren't you the comic?" And then was like, "When are you guys gonna have your next show?" And then the wife was like, "Hey, I've taken your mixed fit classes before. That's the dance fitness I do." So it's just kind of like being plugged into the community is what makes a difference. You know, we do, like, Ruben just emceed a gala for Mason County Crisis Center and Thurston County, the counties surrounding us. So it really is just staying plugged in to our community. And I think the word of mouth, and people will show up to support comics in our area.
That's awesome. Can you talk a little bit more about the email thing that you do?
Yeah, I just use
Like
Eventbrite.
when do you send it? What are you sending? Who do you send it to? That kind of stuff.
Okay, so I try and plan out as far as possible when I know I'm going to do a show. So like we have one, our next show is on November 11th, Veterans Day.
Okay.
So I created that event probably 2 weeks ago. And so from that time on, as soon as it's created, it just goes out, you know, and like I said, there was a new fee this time, but it just goes out to our previous ticket holders. And
yeah, so just so the context for people listening to this in the future, that's about a 6-week runway.
Yeah.
So Mel's talking about, like, she published the show on Eventbrite 6 weeks in advance. And to anybody who's, I think, are you talking about the people who are subscribed to you, or do you mean
Yes.
everybody who's attended?
No, everybody who's attended. Yeah. So it's an Excel spreadsheet that's within Eventbrite. And so, well, you can convert it to an Excel spreadsheet, but they have all the information. And so you can break it up into do, like, you know, what it'll do is like, well, before what it was doing is I think it was like 50 emails a day for free or something like that. But now they charge you. And I want to say it's like, I don't know, $9 or something like that now.
Okay.
But yeah, it just goes out to the people who have purchased tickets before for You Got It Productions. And then, you know, I'll do that first before I even create a flyer. That'll stay in there for a while. And then when I get around to it, I'll do the flyer. And then I will put in the QR code on the flyer. And then I'll start doing social media. So, you know, in Facebook, I will.
We're losing audio.
Facebook, I'll go ahead and create an event that goes out to everybody as well that are on my list. You Got It Productions Facebook fans. And so really it's just getting it out there as much as possible. We also use different groups within Thurston County where we live. So on Facebook, there's all kinds of different groups that you can post your flyer to. Same with that neighborhood app that people are using now. You can do that as well.
Okay.
So
is that Nextdoor
really
that you're talking about?
Plug it into everywhere you can.
Nice. Are you talking about Nextdoor? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, I can't hear you. Hold on. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Barely.
Check.
Okay, but keep going.
You can't hear me?
I can barely hear you.
I feel like your speaker is covered or something, because I'm having trouble hearing you as well for some reason.
Let me see.
All right. Well, if only I knew sign language. That's not very helpful.
Hang on.
Maybe it connected to some Bluetooth somewhere or something.
I'm not sure what happened. Nothing changed.
Well, while she's working on that, we're talking about ways to market comedy shows. There's always local press, which Mel didn't mention. That can be valuable in certain places. In big cities, you're probably not of any interest to the local newspaper, but in smaller towns, independently produced comedy shows could be. When she gets back online, I'll ask her about paid advertising, paying for Facebook and Instagram stuff. Let me see if I can chat Mel and ask her to disconnect and reconnect.
Right there.
Oh,
I'm
there
here.
we go. Are we back?
Yeah.
Back in business? Good.
I don't know what
Okay,
happened.
cool. No problem. I killed some time there, and I got a question for you. Do you ever pay for Facebook or Instagram ads?
Yes, I pay for Facebook ads.
Okay.
Yeah,
Tell me
I
about
do.
like the timing of that. If you're comfortable, how much you spend, like if you do that for every show, or if you're telling,
Yeah.
if you try and handicap whether you're going to sell out or not.
Yeah, as I get closer to the event, that's when I'll start paying for that. But I usually stay in the range of like $25 to $30, not any more
Too
than
small.
that.
Yeah.
So I mean, because our rooms are like, 70 people,
Yeah.
so one thing I have had to have faith in and learn is that no matter what you do, no matter how many times you try and sell tickets, ahead of time, people will show up at the door for the show. And sometimes we end up more than, it's a great problem to have.
Sure.
But it's really hard to like not think that's going to happen and then overpay for those things.
Yes.
But yeah, that no matter how hard I plan and try and like train your customers, what to expect, they still show up at the door, thinking that they're going to get in. And I try really hard not to turn anybody away. If I have to look for extra chairs, as long as I'm not breaking any rules,
Right.
I try and squeeze people in.
Yeah, one thing I've tried, I don't know if it's successful, but I raise the prices over time. So like when the tickets first go on sale, that's the cheapest you're going to get. We call them advanced tickets. And then there's regularly priced tickets, and then the prices go up the week of the show, and the prices go up the day of the show. So if you're a regular, unless you're trying to give us extra money, you're going to pay ahead of time. The
Right.
ideal, like your best case is like 8 days before the show, because you're getting as close as possible to when the show happens, but you're paying basically the least. So interesting. Okay, we got a show online from or a question online from somebody who's confused about the Eventbrite email blasts. Can you talk a little bit more about how you send those emails? I think they're in the marketing tab on the left side, but I'm not 100%. So
Yeah, so I do it from the very, usually that's the first thing I do. So it is in, it'll ask you as you go through the whole process, like you're starting the event, they want the date and the time. And then when you get to the very end and they ask you, it popped up, the question pops up now. Do you want to do this campaign? And obviously now it's going to pop up more because they're charging a fee for it and they want you to pay for it.
okay.
But it's just part of that whole process of when you're first putting together the event. So it should be on that main page.
Yeah, and as an alternative, what I do is different. I don't really send emails through Eventbrite unless there's like some kind of venue information that's important. Sometimes like a day before the event, if it's like 80% sold out and I want to communicate something to everybody like, hey, arrive early, or hey, there's no food at the venue, or, we had a plumbing problem when we moved next door, something like that. It's standing room only, there are no chairs, something weird like that. I will use Eventbrite just to the people who are ticketed for that specific event. But what I do is I export the emails of everybody who bought the tickets out. I get that spreadsheet and I import them into MailChimp, which I spend a small fortune on at this point because I have thousands of subscribers, and it's free up until a certain point. But once you get past that, it's expensive every month. But I don't, I send emails all the time and everybody's tagged as to like what shows they went to and where they went to, because I have shows all over the state of Colorado. So when I send, if I'm trying to promote the Castle Rock Comedy Show, which is half an hour south of Denver, people who have been to Vail, Colorado, which is 150 miles away to see a comedy show, I don't really care about marketing to them. I want the people who went to the Castle Rock show in the past.
Right.
So
yeah, that's true. We don't do,
yeah.
I don't go far from our little hood here.
Yeah, that's convenient. All your customers can go to any of your venues, which is nice.
Yeah, we have our next one coming up is at Medicine Creek Winery. So it's a little winery. It's a pretty cute little venue. Again, it'll fit about 70 to 80 people in there. But I have used the same thing through Eventbrite, but I do like learning from you, and I like the advice that you give. You've given me some good feedback in the past. But yeah, so I'm considering that MailChimp thing.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I would, if I had to do it all over, I might check out this thing called Beehive. HIIV is how they spell hive. It just seems like it's MailChimp was created 10 plus years ago, And it's like if they created MailChimp today, but I've like tried to import my stuff over. It's sticky. MailChimp is sticky. It's hard to
Uh-huh.
get out of because all my
Stuff they
stuff
have
is
everything.
there. And yeah, it's difficult. All right, we're running out of time. I did want to ask you a couple specific questions. One of them is, have you ever worked with a guy named Gabriel Rutledge?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, tell me about him.
He's a genius. I mean, he's a great comic. He's a nice guy. My personal experience with him, well, was just seeing him locally, but then, God, it's probably been about 10 years. But I used to work for State Farm corporate over here in DuPont, Washington. We had a huge Christmas party. It was actually the last one before everything started changing. It was the last Christmas party that State Farm corporate had here. And I booked him. And he's probably like my most, like, as far as being, proud about booking a comic. To get him to come to our corporate State Farm party was awesome. It was at Lee May Car Museum. And I don't know if you got a chance to see that when you were here, but you should definitely check it out when you come back.
Okay.
It's in Tacoma. But it was just a great opportunity to work with him. And it was a little nerve wracking because if like corporate, corporations and parties and things of that nature, you're kind of like, ooh, like, I hope I don't get fired for this. But he's a professional. He knew what he was doing and he did fabulous.
That's awesome.
But he was just in Las Vegas, I think, at the MGM performing.
Yeah,
so
he's wild. He's coming out and doing 5 of my shows in Colorado in April. I hope if he doesn't like blow up and get on TV between now and then. But I've heard this from so many people, and normally I don't book people who don't have late night credits, but I've heard it from club owners and other folks. I took a little risk there asking you about him because if you were like, oh, that guy, he didn't show up to a gig or something, he showed up drunk. But I've just heard nothing but effusive comments about how funny he is and how great every show he's on is. So I'm really excited. That's April 2024. He's doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday with
it'll be a great time.
Different towns around Colorado. So cool that you got to see him. Where can if people are visiting Olympia, Washington, which is a beautiful place, by the way. I'd never been. I went in September of last year. I went out, did a couple comedy shows, and had a great time. It was like half vacation, half comedy. And I highly recommend everybody to visit Olympia. How do people find your shows?
So if you want to come do it, You Got a Production show, just go on social media, type us in. You'll find us on Eventbrite, Facebook,
it's you
Instagram.
With a U.
You Got It Productions.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome, Melanie. Any last thoughts, comments, questions? Anything else you want to add?
No, I just, thank you. I totally had a great time at your Vail Comedy Festival that I got to go to. You did a great job.
You got to come back. We got to get you back.
Hopefully. Yeah. So I just thank you. Thank you for the time today.
Yeah. You're welcome, Mel. By the way, Vail Comedy Festival every Memorial Day weekend coming up next year, May 24 through 26, 2024. That's Mel from You Got It Productions. She runs great shows in the Pacific Northwest with a team, very professional, great after parties, just great events, good crowds. I can't say enough nice things about the shows that Mel runs. So thank you very much, Mel. We'll be back next Monday on Always Bookin Comedy. Everybody tune in. See you then.